Yes. It's the Tim McKernan Show podcast. My name is Timothy Michael McKernan. I'm joined by a gentleman by the name of Jackson Bennett Burkett on a podcast that is presented to you by James Carlton of the Carlton State Farm Insurance Agency, by Mark Hanna of Evergreen Wealth Strategies, and by Seth Goldcamp of Design Air Heating and Cooling. Online at designairservice.com. Mark is online at evergreenstl.com, and James is online at carltoninsurance.net. And I think the world of all three of those individuals and would advise people to do business with them in a straightforward, I would put it in a blood oath, Jackson. That's how highly I think of those three individuals. Absolutely. So deal with that, fuck boy. Jackie Papers. Perfect. The mic is falling apart as I just moved it slightly. The great James Carlton was on TMA this morning. And now this is what I was planning on doing this anyway. But he said, hey, remember at the end of the podcast, I think this one was 2 weeks ago, I think it was Don PP, said, just out of nowhere, I was just looking at the YouTube chat. He said, what's the greatest conversation you ever had? And I go, but we'd already gone like 90 minutes or so. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But I need to think about it before answering it. And in the first time in this podcast's history, I texted you in advance of what we were going to talk about. Mm-hmm. Granted, it was 15 minutes out.
I was going to say, in advance that's a liberal term of in advance.
But literally, it is in advance.
100%.
But as far as like, hey, we're going to do this on Monday at 11:30, think about it over the weekend. No, that didn't happen. But I actually wrote out notes.
Nice.
This is very uncomfortable. I'm looking. I love this conversation. I kind of want to hear people's as well.
Sure.
So you can email. You can always email questions in for QFTA. It stands for questions from the audience. T McKernan at InsideSTL.com. And send those in anytime you would like. But I'd love to hear if there is one that stands out, because when you start to think about it, there's two things that come across my mind. There's like nostalgia / appreciation for some of these conversations. And then there's also, I know I'm forgetting one, and I wish I could think of it. I don't know what it is, of course, but I wish I could think of it. And maybe this conversation today will trigger that. I also imagine some of the conversations will be with people when people think of this topic who are no longer around, and that might make it even more significant. Yeah. So I actually, as of right now, have 4 that I have in my notes app to share, and I have a feeling I may think of one as we go. But with that said, Jackson, is there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever it is? What is your answer?
Just in a small one, a few years ago, I remember I had a conversation with my father, and he's always so adamant about time, like letting time pass, like allowing time to give you space from something, allowing time to make things better. Like no matter what situation it is, he's always talking about like the value of time. Like in time, it'll all work. He shared with me a quote recently that I absolutely love. It's a John Lennon quote. It's that in the end, everything will be all right. And if it's not all right, then it's not the end. And I think that's like
that's pretty good.
I think that's
John Lennon.
That's John Lennon, and I think it's just one of the best quotes ever, because it's absolutely right. Like he always says, time is the great equalizer, and my dad says that, and I couldn't agree. Like that, whenever I come to him with anything or anything like that, it's always about like allowing time to pass. In time. Like when I was struggling to find work after college in the middle of the pandemic. He was like, don't worry, in time. He's like, in a year or any time, you'll look back and be like, why was I so stressed about this? I eventually found my job, and then I eventually started working on TMA. No. So like, it couldn't have been more truthful. Or anytime I've had rough patches in my work life or school life, it's always like, oh, give it some time and then look back on it. And this is always the case, and it's always helped me, like no matter what. And it kind of goes back to like, if you're not going to stress over something in a week, why stress over it this very second? And that's the truest statement. That right there is like a prime example of like allowing time to pass and understanding things in the bigger picture. And so that like off the bat is a meaningful conversation. But I remember you talking about booze being involved. And some of like my favorite conversations I've had.
So on TMA, for those not
Yes,
familiar,
yes.
no, I'm not saying you were anything wrong, but because it makes it sound like I'm like, in order for me to talk, I need to be fucked up.
Right.
But I said, I feel like many of my best conversations probably would be when I'm just sitting there having a drink with somebody.
Yes.
That's what I was saying. Go
Yes.
ahead, sorry.
And that's exactly right. Like some of my favorite conversations, even if they had nothing to do with like heavy shit or meaning of life or this, that, the other, are like hanging out after the bars in college or hanging out after the bars post-college. Just like on someone's patio, a couple beers, someone might be banging a dart, and you're just hanging out. You might be talking about how good the '06 Cardinals were and how we don't talk about them enough, or something as heavy as what to do for a career change or something. But it's always, those conversations are always really, really fun, and I have millions of those that I can think of. Like a bachelor party I went to in the Ozarks a month or two ago, we had some just outstanding conversations after the bars, just hanging out, a lot on the state of baseball.
The state of baseball.
Yeah.
You and 15 other guys, 10 beds, everybody's drunk, and you start going off on Manfred.
One of my friends was going off on Manfred.
Oh, that was oatmeal, wasn't it?
It was my boy CP. He's a baseball purist, I would say, and we had some great conversations about how the game is developed and how they're trying to allow newer fans or younger fans in, and how that degrades some of the natural things of baseball. And I love conversations like that, So I don't necessarily have one like, here's the date, here's the person, but I know I have like a million little moments like that I love.
God bless. God bless. I went with, as of right now, 2 professional and 2 personal. The professional would be, and in a way, I almost feel like this led to the second answer. I had just started at KMOV, and I believe it was May of 2000. And so I was only, 23 years old. And the assignment essentially was to get an interview, to basically fill the time on the hour-long show that we did on KMOV on Sunday nights. So Steve Savard was the sports director, and Doug and I worked together. Doug, if you were to order it by position, which also included compensation and, where you anchored and so on, Doug was the 2, I was the 3. It was a 3-person on-air sports department. Those days are long gone, at least in St. Louis they are, and in probably most local television news. And so when you have an hour show, that's probably 45-ish minutes of programming. And so you've got to fill out the 45 minutes. And so I believe it was either Steve or the executive producer, Tim Klutzarts, who's now a news director in Fort Myers Television, said, go over to the ballpark and get an interview. And I think what they thought I was going to do was kind of like what you'd see like in a, wrapping up on SVP, where they're just a mic back and forth. But the photographer I brought was assigned to me, was a really talented photographer, the same one who Gary Pinkel didn't like wearing the Tennessee hat. His name's Gary Womack, great photographer. He wants to like shoot it like a really nice interview. So I guess either before the game, but probably afterwards. It was the day they honored Willie McGee in 2000, for sure. They didn't retire his number, but they honored him. And I asked LaRussa if we could do an interview. It had to have been after the game. And he didn't really know me. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'm going to go, whatever, eat or something like that, and then I'll be back. We can do it, in here. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so then Gary begins treating his office like a set and starts lighting it. He turns the lights off, so it looks like a 30 for 30 kind of interview. He really dialed it up. And I remember LaRussa walking back in and going, whoa, what's this? So I think unintentionally, when you have that setting, as opposed to just a stick mic back and forth, right, it sets the tone. Like if I were to have somebody on the podcast and use the studios that Hubbard has for Spread Zone,
right.
It sets a tone of, okay, you're going to be giving a little more. Yeah. And I think the expectation of the person being interviewed is that they're going to give more.
Yeah.
it's just a different kind of. And so when that's set, and you know the person's good with it, but at the time I hadn't really done that, and so we have this conversation, and the reason why I know it was Willie McGee Day is because that's before the Cardinals had the Cardinal Hall of Fame, but they basically had the unspoken Hall of Fame. So you didn't have the red jackets, but you had the guys. So I without question, assuming they could be there that day, you would have had all these recent Cardinals who have passed away: Musial, Gibson, Brock, Ozzie, Shane Dienst, Bruce Sutter. Take your pick of all these greats, and probably even more because it was 2000, so many of them would have still been around. And Whitey Herzog was there. And this is 2000. Now, this will sound insane to you because you didn't live this. But when Tony La Russa first got here, he was really unpopular. And I would tell you he was unpopular up until the 2004 season. Truly unpopular. Polarizing. There was appreciation, but he was a polarizing figure. It would be the equivalent as you and I sit here and are doing this show. It's June 30th, 2025. And one of the topics that is going on in St. Louis sports right now is whether or not the Blues will trade Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Kyrou, on a smaller scale, for the record, versus where La Russa was, is kind of the polarizing member of the Blues. It would be like if we go back in 20 years and listen to this, and Kyrou winds up being a Hall of Famer who brought a couple cups to St. Louis, and to think that he was polarizing, it'll sound crazy, but that's what La Russa was.
Right.
The reason I bring that up is when they introduced Whitey Herzog, huge roars. Right. When then they introduced La Russa, and it's like golf clap, if that.
Smatterings, yeah.
So the way I interview, and I guess to this day I still interview, but I think this conversation is significant, which is why I cited. I asked questions that I was just interested in the answers to as like a guy talking to a guy. And one of the it's not how I started it off, but one of the questions I asked, and again, I mean, we're in this guy's office. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm 23, and there's just me, La Russa, and my photographer, and it's all dark except for like the well-done lighting, the light stands that are lighting him. And I asked the question, something I'm paraphrasing here because it's been a quarter century, but how did it make you feel when Whitey gets the reception he gets and you get the reception you got? It strikes me that Whitey Herzog is held in really high esteem, whereas you have a lot of critics here, and I think some of it has nothing to do with baseball. It has to do with the fact that you're not from here. Whitey's from here. Whitey's the beer-drinking guy. You're the wine-drinking guy. Whitey would go out hunting and fishing with Jack Buck. You're a vegetarian. It was perceived that La Russa was really liberal. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. But either way, that was essentially the question. And he really gave a thoughtful answer. And then we wound up talking about something else. I can't recall that wasn't necessarily on the field. But we got done. And I think we were both laved up is the term, lavalier mics, so not like a stick mic. And so he's taken his mic off from his jersey. And he goes, well, wish Martin were here to do the impression. He goes, tell you what, those are some really good questions there, man. He goes, how old are you? And I go, I'm 23. And he goes, I'm telling you, with that kind of interviewing style, you could wind up working on a network, New York, something like that. That was really, really good questions.
TV network.
And I was like, and we got done. And my photographer, and again, I had been there for a month and a half or something. And I guess now looking back on it, I didn't see myself this way. And I don't know if this would go on in that industry now because so many people go straight from Columbia to bigger markets, whereas it used to be you had to start at probably a couple smaller markets before getting to St. Louis. So I was really lucky. He goes, hey, man, that was really good. He goes, what was that all about? And I don't know what you mean. He goes, well, you just asked you didn't ask him softballs. You really asked him some, good, tough questions that made him think. And then you heard what he said to you afterwards. I go, yeah. He goes, that was something else. And then he goes back and starts raving about the interview and me to Savard. And certainly the interview, I guess, got attention. I don't know. I mean, it's been 25 years. But the reason I cite that is the domino effect of that interview. Because it led to the second conversation I will cite, which is strictly professional, but it also led to, I guess, the confidence to have those kinds of conversations, to realize the importance of being respectful, I think, in those conversations, and not like, which I'd like to think started to do with this podcast when we started 8 years ago. I might totally, like Ed Martin is a guy who got a lot of attention recently because I think he was going to be a Trump appointee in D.C., but he was a congressman in St. Louis. And he just represented everything that I personally don't like, using religion to gain votes specifically. But I couldn't have enjoyed to have a conversation with him more than I did. And he would email me, even though I don't totally disagree with where he's coming from, but hey, God bless, we disagree, whatever. But you still I think you handle it in a respectful manner, as opposed to, okay, you said this in 2017. It's now 2025. Would you lose the context of why the opinion may have changed? So in other words, it becomes a gotcha conversation.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that set the tone for loving doing those kinds of interviews, which was the only thing, and to this day, the only thing I miss about doing television, but now you don't need television to do those. And then it also gave me the confidence to do those. And then I think, big picture, it probably led to Sound Story, because that inquisitive nature, that curiosity being celebrated, rewarded, where, now I think I just, that's how I like to do interviews. It's like to have conversations. I was all boozed up on Saturday night, and I don't know how many, I'm sitting there just bullshitting with people, and I'm asking them, and, sometimes I'm like, but man, I want to talk about the show. And I'm like, we can do that whenever you want to do it, but I really want to ask, because I'm legitimately curious. So I love that kind of thing. And I think had that not happened, I think it's like this, it's a domino after domino, and there are a lot of dominoes in between. I don't know if Sound Story would have been born, because I could sit and do a Sound Story, and you do them as well, and I don't necessarily need like the talking points. I'll just learn about the person as we go, because I'm naturally inquisitive, and I hear the follow-ups that are coming from the answers that they give beforehand. So that was significant. It gave me the confidence to get to the second one, which would be interviewing Barry Bonds. But that isn't because it's Barry Bonds, perhaps, one of the top 5 hitters in the history of the game, depending on how you view his career and the performance-enhancing drugs that surround the career. But not only did I have the confidence to go up to Bonds, but the interview was so good, and I don't think that was about me. It's because he was so comfortable. He was answering questions, and they weren't about baseball, really. They were about him having the label of being an asshole, which he absolutely did, and he knew. It was about not taking time to sign autographs, because the whole time we were in the Giants dugout, and there were kids leaning over asking. And I recall him saying something along the lines of, I do these interviews. If I do these interviews with you guys, he goes, I don't get paid to do that. I get paid to hit a baseball. I get paid to throw a baseball. I get paid to run. I get paid to catch a baseball. And then I do them, and then you guys burn me afterwards. He goes, so why would I do this? He goes, it's not what I get paid to do, and all I do is get burned by doing it. So that he at least gave his perspective, which I have to say made sense. And then the interview thing, I said, right over here, and God, I look back and I go, God, I was fucking 23. I go, there are, 100 kids right here, and I know you probably can't get to them all, but if you just signed for 5 minutes, however, that would last the rest of their lives for them. And he goes, man, that's not what I'm paid to do. If I can, I'm happy to do it, but it's just not what I'm paid to do. I'm paid to play baseball. And in his mind, it was so easy. And I have to say, the way he laid it out, he made a compelling case, but you never really heard him talk like that. And I think that when I think of like my favorite interview, it's tough, because like if somebody were to email me and I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot that one. But the Bonds one, because it was so eye-opening, I guess what I would say is the biggest lesson from that is, don't judge a book by its cover, because I only asked Barry Bonds to do the interview because I thought he was going to tell me to fuck off, and I wasn't going to. There was no Twitter. I wasn't going to go like, Barry Bonds, give me sympathy because I'm a victim. It was just like I would go and drink with my buddies after I'd get done with work, and I would tell them the stories of how I was told to fuck off by take your pick of whatever baseball player, right? And so I'm like, oh, Bonds is sitting in the famous leather chair that is in his contract, where everybody else has to sit on the couches, and Bonds has the leather chair, and he's sitting in it. This is perfect, because there's not a chance in hell.
They brought it on the road?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I think that might have been the big deal, that they had to bring this damn thing on the road. And he's sitting in the leather chair, and I'm sure most media guys, I guess, were like, "Oh fuck, I'm not." And it's now looking back on it, it's kind of understood when a guy is sitting in
Right.
a spot and it's not in front of his locker in base. Now I haven't done this stuff in so long. Maybe it's changed, but that's kind of like we're off limits right now.
Right.
And so I just walk up to him in the leather recliner, and I go, "Hey, Barry, I introduce myself. Can we do an interview while you're in town? What do you want to talk to me about, man?" And I go, "I don't know. You're like good and stuff."
Like the best pair. 30
It was
years.
like a Beavis and Butthead thing. And he goes, "Man," he goes, "all right, catch me after BP." And I'm like,
Oh my god.
I can't believe it. And I didn't even have a photographer because I wasn't even thinking that he was going to say
Right, there's no
yes.
way, right.
So Camo V, before they moved to wherever the hell they are now, they're off 270 like in Westport or something,
Dorset, yeah.
was right, I don't even 2 blocks away from Busch Stadium too. And I went running over there and I said, "Hey, Barry Bonds is going to do an interview with me. Can I get a photographer?" Which was not an easy thing to do. Get Doug going about that. Back in the day where we couldn't touch
Right.
the
Yeah,
equipment
right,
because of
right.
union rules, IBEW. And so they get me a photographer. We do the interview in the dugout, and he's so good. He's so good. And I just that always stands out to me. Again, if it would have just been like, "Hey, I interviewed Barry Bonds," and it was throwaway shit about baseball,
Right.
but it was about, I don't know, the stuff that I cared about. But then that opened him up because clearly he cared about it too, but he never gets asked about it.
Right.
And I loved that. Now, the unfortunate tail end of the story is when he came back in 2001, when he was going to break McGuire's record, he remembered me, came up to me when we were on the field, which is insane to think, and shook my hand and was like, "What's up, man? How you doing?" And the first thing I say, because Savard and Doug go, "Are you going to get Barry when he's in town this week?"
Right.
So I'm like, "Oh, I got to get Barry now. This is my thing."
Right.
And I mean, it was in the first like 3 seconds. Oh, isn't it just awful? Doesn't it just make you like tense
Yeah,
up?
Yeah.
I,
Because especially the way that like you
yes,
just said
he came to
started,
me.
Right.
He recognized me. He did a presser because he was going to break McGuire's record. This was early in the season, by
Right,
the way.
right.
But I mean, he was on a pace.
Sure.
And people knew he could do it, of course. Unlike our guy, the big dumper, Cal Raleigh, who nobody's probably even talking about, but is on a pace right now to possibly break Bonds' record. But he recognized me when he was doing it at the podium, and he like smiled and pointed at me. So then I see him on the field, and I go, "Hey, while you're in town, can we get another interview?"
Oh, man.
And he just goes, "Man," and he shook his head and he walked away. I mean, it was like a movie.
Yeah. There's a lesson in that though.
Oh,
right there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So those would be my 2 professional ones. Personally, this is perhaps when you ask any longtime TMA listener, most significant moments. I mean, why would anybody know this? Because this was off the air. But it's the reason why this conversation is the reason why the show still exists. Don't get me wrong, when you're talking about Martin Kilcoyne, you, the cat, Doug, I don't want to leave Iggy, I don't want to leave people at Plowhawk, producer Joe, all the people associated with the show over the years. Sea Monster, I'm trying to do this off the cuff here. That's the reason. Salespeople, key salespeople over the years, sponsors who have been loyal to the show, but they're not loyal blindly. They get return on investment. I don't expect handouts. People don't get return on investment, and their businesses, fortunately, continue to go on for a while, and they were able to advertise and get a return on investment. This is the conversation, though, that to me mattered the most, and that's when I had an offer to go to 590. We were at 1380. But it was going to be to do afternoons, and it was for like a 25 or 30% pay increase, so it counted. But because it was afternoons, this was 2010, I think, 2009, end of 2009. The Cat and Doug wouldn't have been able to be on the show because they were doing television.
Right.
And I'm like, that I don't want that.
Right.
But at the same time, 1380 is like, we're going to be going out of business. We can't afford to pay you guys. So then John Helmkamp, who ran 1380, but he wasn't the owner. The owner was a company called Simmons Media, which was based out of Salt Lake. Great group, by the way, but not a big, like a Odyssey
Sure.
or iHeart or Hubbard even, that John Helmkamp came to me. He goes, I can't keep you and I can't pay you. He goes, but if you wanted to pay Doug and pay the cat and pay producer Joe, whatever you have left over, you can pay yourself with. He goes, but we can't pay anymore. We can't afford you guys. So if you want to leave, we understand. But if you want to stay, you're going to have to sell your own stuff. And at the time, I had some semblance of a sales staff because of InsideSTL.com, which was basically a girl next door contest platform and a website. The radio advertising was certainly much higher than the InsideSTL.com advertising. But I had a sales staff. And so we had an infrastructure. And the show had a following, but the show's following was not near what the show's following is now. Even though, you look back on it, the show had been around at that point for 6 years. So it had been around 5-6 years. And, one of the reasons I didn't go to New York City was because I didn't want to leave TMA and Inside STL. So now it's like, God, here we go again. And I recall talking to my dad, and he said the line that I oftentimes give when telling this story. I said, what should I do? Should I go to $590? It's guaranteed money. It might have been like a 3-year deal or something like that. It's more money than I'm making right now. Or do I stay at $1380? But I don't know what I'm going to make because I'm going to eat what I kill. That's it. And he's like, God, it's clear as day. I can picture where I was. I lived in above Flannery's on Washington Avenue, and I was in our loft. And he goes, Timmy, they're both shitholes. But if I got to be in a shithole, I want to control my own destiny. So I would say no to $590 and take care of myself and do what I want to do by running my own thing at $1380. And that was the moment when Inside STL began to own the intellectual property of TMA. So I guess it goes without saying, had I left, TMA ends. Not because of it being me, but because they couldn't pay Doug and the Cat, so they were shutting down. And Doug and the Cat couldn't do afternoons with me on KFNS, so that would have been the end of it.
Right.
And looking back on it, God, and these are the kinds of moves that the fact that I didn't have children allowed me to make. And at that point, I'm 33. Plenty of people, probably most of my peers, by 33 in St. Louis, at least at that time, had kids. If I had kids, I'm not even in a position to ask that question. You know what I mean? Right. But because of that, that began, and immediately I remember what the number needed to be, and God, I don't even know if we ever operated at a deficit. We immediately hit it and then some. And then that got the wheels in motion for this thing to do what it's wound up doing. But that was the key. So I oftentimes think the entrepreneurial spirit is romanticized. I think that might happen on social media, but that might just be my algorithm because that's what I'm into. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes there's that might not be the right way to go. It depends on the circumstances. But in that case, it's one of those, it wound up working out, but that's not the reason it was the right answer. Right. It was the right answer because that's what we were best suited to do. Right. And also I don't think what I was going to do on 590 in the afternoons would have been anything particularly special. But what a significant move and moment that was. And for real, if my dad doesn't say, if he would have gone, you can't really go wrong either way. I'm not sure what I would have said. It'd
be tough to say no to the.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It was real money. At that point, I started to make some real money doing this stuff, and it mattered. And then so I'm literally now. I don't know if I'm going to have a check. Right. And now I got to operate it. On top of that, I don't know how the fuck to operate it. So that was critical. But he said it in a way of, Timmy, they're both shitholes. So it's not like he's like, no, this one's good. No,
right.
they're both terrible. They're one place can't pay you. The other place, is not going to do anything special. And if I got to be in a shithole, I'd rather control my own destiny, which really is the only time I've ever heard that phrase.
Right.
But he said it so
wise.
demonstratively,
Yeah.
because I've asked when I've had decisions since then, and it's kind of been,
Right.
But on that one, it was so key. And then finally, and then this one would probably be the most personal, that does not include anything to do with professional. My wife and I, in 2014, and we got married in 2011, had tried to have a baby via IVF 2 different times. First time she got pregnant, and I feel like it was June-ish. First time she got pregnant and lost the baby within, a week. And this is IVF. That's, I think, relatively common. This is 2014, so the numbers may be better, but if memory serves, the conversion rate on IVF at the time was 67%. Now, when you think of the cost,
Right.
I wouldn't make that bet for 67%. But at the same time, if it's your only chance to have a child, then many people do make that bet. I obviously made that bet. She was very down when that happened, but she wasn't beside herself. But she was very down. And then you have a decision, and that's one of the people will go through this. People may have gone through it who are listening to this. The other part of the equation when you're considering IVF is not just the financial, which you don't realize until you're on the other side of it. If it does not work out, is the emotional toll it takes, in particular on your wife. And she was really down. So I'm like, okay, let's just get back up on the horse and try again. Because you clearly could get pregnant. This wasn't a case of you just can't get pregnant. You did get pregnant. It just didn't take for it was only lasting a week. So we just go right back. I think maybe it was August that lost the baby. And again, I mean, it's a weekend, so this was not a late term situation. And then we do it again, I believe, around Thanksgiving, in the Thanksgiving early part of December range, and this is 2014. And this time, she doesn't even get pregnant. And this time, now she truly is despondent. I mean, really low. And I can recall being on the same beach where, again, it wasn't set up this way, of course. It's just where we went. I'm like, okay, we got to get out of St. Louis. I just need to take care of her as well as I can. And the same beach, we got married in Sanibel, so that exact same beach, probably steps away from where we got married, coincidentally. And had a conversation about, both the present and her emotions, but also the future and what it may look like, which we might not be able to have kids. And to try to get her from that point of being as sad, and I think there's also, this is something that you and I can't talk to as men, but like you feel like a failure as a woman. I think some do, not everybody. Sure. I'm not saying that, but I think some do, that she may have, that she couldn't get pregnant, and that's kind of what it's like now. Now they're like, you might have to adopt. That's where you're, or go surrogate route.
Right.
And so that's where we were, and that was a really, really low point. But whereas I think, and I could be wrong, that can be a moment where some couples it might be a big enough issue that it leads to, separating and divorce. Somehow, I think we actually got closer, and then we were able to have our first son naturally, no IVF, which didn't even know if it was possible. And she got pregnant in December of 2016. And I'm so grateful that we had the presence of mind to just get out of here and prioritize, our marriage and prioritize her, because I don't know what would have happened had we not done that. I guess in a way we were lucky that it was that weekend between Christmas and New Year's. I operated 9:20, so I had the flexibility to go, okay, I'm just taking off.
Yeah.
Again, it's the week between Christmas and New Year's, so whatever. But that was a very significant thing, and I think it played a role in leading to the ability not only to get through it together, but to have what we have now, which is 2 children. So those are the 4 that stood out to me. Jackie Papers.
Yeah, those are great.
God bless.
We've talked about the one with your dad before about the 2.
They're both shitholes.
An absolute watershed moment in TMA history. Not to mention your professional history, but yeah, that is a major moment. It was a great conversation, and that's what you said about that last one is like it's a real pivot point for a lot of people, and I'm sure people have different circumstances or context in which that same truth is there. Like, this is a moment where we either split apart, we grow distant, or we strengthen, together. And those are as meaningful conversations or moments in your life as you can have. Because I'm sure one way or another, everyone out there listening has had a moment similar to that with someone or some people. And the result of that is always, and how you get to that result is always so fascinating and important.
Yeah, that you got to tend to it, and prioritize it, and that's
right.
And that's what we fortunately were able to do. I would love hearing from people with their conversation. I bet there's some incredible stories in there.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
I can't imagine. I mean, some of these they happen to involve TMA. Or people who audience members would know in the case of Tony La Russa or Barry Bonds. But I'm not telling the stories because of the Q rating of those people. They just were kind of significant conversations. I would think there's been an interview that I've done where I'm like, holy shit. But that one with La Russa was significant because I think it led to the other interviews where it was like this conversational interview style.
Right. I have a meaningful one that happened to you.
What do we got here?
That you told me, and that I think about often. You were playing golf with one Michael Wellington. The round might have started as you guys hoped.
Oh, this is great.
And
this is not really serious, but it's good perspective.
Great perspective. And you turn to Mr. Wellington, and correct me if I'm wrong in any part of this, and you kind of explain like, hey, there's a decent amount of money on the line here, we're playing for stuff. And he goes, oh, I know, a lot of golf left.
Yeah, the delivery was...
And it's how he delivered, because the line itself is just like, yeah, there's time. But the way, like, that calm, collective presence of mind to be like, we got 14 more holes left to play, like, a lot of golf left.
It was truly... You can certainly tie it into golf, I guess, if you wanted to tie it into gambling. But it's like a life lesson in a simple, exchange. We were playing, and I usually play with kind of the same group of guys, and there's an understanding that hey, somebody might lose what we consider to be a nice amount of money.
Right.
Of course, that's always relative, and that's the deal. Like I played with producer Joe and KG in O-Town and Doug on Friday. Mm-hmm. And we got done, and I just played a little $20 Nassau with producer Joe.
Right.
And he to his credit, he had to not birdie, but with a pop on 18, roll in a putt for a 4-3 to beat me. I parred it, and I was already in. And if he didn't, I think I would have been up $20. Whatever. It's immaterial dollars.
Sure.
It wasn't about that. And we got done. And I hand him the $20 bill, and he goes, no, which I had a feeling he might say because, okay, I took him to my place and paid for everything, whatever. But I'm like, because I promise you, if you would have owed me $500 somehow at the end of this, I would be expecting that fucking money. Right. And it goes both ways. Doug always, with the betting, he goes, I don't expect people to pay, and I'm not going to, I don't know what kind of operation he plays in, but if we bet, then that's the deal, and it's understood. And it might be awkward when you're handing me $500 or I'm handing you $500, but fuck it, that's what we signed up for.
You have that blanket statement, right? You never have any.
That's the deal.
You never have
it's
any.
It's not personal.
Right.
Fucking pay me. Right. Because I was paying you. Fuck off. I don't care what it is. So I said, take the fucking money. It's the principle of the thing.
Right.
But in that game, Wellington usually does, because he's on the road caddying, and this was a handful of years ago. He might have been caddying with Nagel at the time, and I don't know what we were down. I guess, as Jackson says, it's never good to talk about the dollars. It never meant. But it was an amount of money that I'm like, I hope.
Right,
and this is after 3 holes.
Right. Which in that game, it can
yeah, and there's
a lot of swing.
this isn't like a NAS. This is a game where there can be whatever, but
Pretty
a
big
nice
swings.
amount of money on each. Again, relatively speaking, we're not talking about like thousands, but you can certainly play it to make it thousands. But that's not what we're playing. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what his situation is. His life at that time is kind of tied to how the guy he's caddying for plays.
For sure, life of a caddy.
And so I'm just like, oh, this, I don't know if because his behavior hadn't changed from when we were on the first tee to walking up to the fourth tee. And I felt like a fiduciary responsibility.
Right.
To say, hey, not because I'm like, oh, fuck.
Right.
I was like, oh, I don't want him to get in a spot
To get blindsided.
where,
Right.
And I said, hey, just so you know, we're down.
X,
Yeah, after that hole. And he goes, oh, I know, a lot of golf left.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and I'm like, put me in a foxhole with that motherfucker.
Right.
That's what I want. And I play better when I know I got that kind of situation
Right.
where it's like, if I'm playing with somebody where I'm like, oh, this is going to matter. And like if you can press in our game if you're losing, the other team tees off first, and then you can decide if you want to press. And I view it like a poker hand. If I'm a favorite, even if I'm only a 51% favorite, the right play is to press.
Right.
That's the deal.
Right.
But you gotta have risk tolerance.
You have to play like that all the time
Right.
to get the probability to play out.
That's exactly right. Now you might lose,
Right.
and they could press back if you hit two bad shots, you and your teammate. That's the game. Yeah. But that's the way you play it. And so, but if I'm playing with somebody who, the press scares them, that's fine. I know it. But then I'll just, okay, we're never going to press, and the losses will be, relatively speaking, minimal.
Yeah.
But I can't have somebody where that's why I invited you to be my partner, whatever that was last year. Because I'm like, okay, here's little Jackie Papers, and we're pressing I can picture it on 13. I'm like, all right, there's some money on the line now.
Yeah.
And you're still in the early part of your career, in your mid-20s. These dollars matter. They matter to me now, much less somebody who's just getting going in their career.
Right.
So they sure as hell would have mattered to me when I was at that time 25, I think it was, when I was playing with you. And you hit it dead down the middle on a rope, and I go, all right.
Yeah.
That told me all I needed to know.
Benefit, like driver is far and away the best club in my bag.
Well, there's an open face compression issue right now.
Yeah, but getting off the tee is never an issue, but everything else.
Yeah. So that was. There's something there. It actually ties back to the Kyra conversation. For those who want to see the Blues trade Kyra, they're just like, yeah, when the playoffs come around, he doesn't. Now, I don't think that's a case of like he chokes. It's a case of that style of game may not lend itself to his strengths. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But that certainly is where some of those who want to see him get traded come from on that. So yeah. That's that. I can't tell you how much I loved that.
Yeah.
And then we wound up winning too. Right. Not only, we were down whatever, but then we circled back.
Right.
And the guy I play the best with right now, who and is an absolute, lunatic gambler. We always talk, and we're pairing, and we're 6-0 this year. And I'm not talking about our little gambling game. We're certainly profitable there too. But in matches and these events around St. Louis, and at our own place, and I swear, it's because it's comfortable.
Right.
But I also think in a way it's kind of an indictment that my play is in part reliant on who I'm paired with. Mm-hmm. That isn't a good thing. I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, but the golf pairing thing is very real. Like, and one person can make or break it, because you're going to be with these people kind of alone in the wilderness for 4.5 hours. Like, it does matter, and that can affect, your mental. Golf is, what's the Yogi Berra quote? 90% of the game is half mental.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that is as true as
it's so true. Yeah. It really is so true. That reminds me, one of the questions here in the email, were you in, it was addressed to you, but maybe it was just emailed to me. Let's see. This is from Marlon's Family Barbecue.
Oh, that's right.
Did you get the email?
No, but I remember, didn't we mention this last week that he had a email?
No, he sent it yesterday.
Okay,
this is
never mind,
my QFTA. Hello, gentlemen. I'm sending this early as I don't know when you'll have your next QFTA with the holiday week coming up, and I don't always catch it. First things first, it's Sunday the 29th, so this stuff will likely be played out by the time you get to it, but context helps. I really want to win Emailer of the Month.
Damn, I feel bad I got filtered today.
And he got filtered today.
Yeah, that's tough.
I've got no shame in saying that. I would need to tie Buck Swope Monday, and when a playoff it came to that, so the odds are low. He's going to be a panty rooster.
Yeah, Chairman's going to have to deal with it.
I just remember the golf question. The second part. I forgot about this. I was going to skip ahead just to the golf question. I'm like, oh, yeah. Then he writes, but I just wanted to say it's been a fun month of sending in nonsense and it getting read. It's tough to get through that KG filter.
Wow, yeah, truer statements. Their words never been said.
And even harder getting votes. Shout out to legends like Buck Swope, JV golf coach Misty Plops, and Cucky for being all-time greats. Thanks to Tim, Jackson, KG, and Doug for the fun with it and the votes along the way. Fun month. Well, it's going to be a different tone.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be so...
Did you see the email that got filtered today?
No, I didn't. I should go take a look at it.
Now for the QFTA for you. Tim and Jackson, if you could point to one moment... I thought this email was about golf. I guess it's the next email. Now, for the QFT, Tim and Jackson, if you could point to one moment or perhaps a couple moments, where do you think it went wrong for downtown St. Louis? It's a good question. I was tying it into a question that I thought, but it must be like one of the next ones. That's from Marlon's Family Barbecue, filtered on the day he needed to win. Oof. Tough. Yeah, that's one that I would also say to you that you probably need to be briefed on, and if you're not, don't. And listen, I mean, while I have a little more, I guess, I don't know what the right word would be. I've got a little more experience because I lived there, and my company's offices were there. The honest answer is I really don't know. I think St. Louis. And boy, this is an exposed nerve. But I don't, this is what I think. So therefore I will say, I think St. Louis has such an issue with race, more so than I think the majority of other, let's say, top 50 television markets. And I'm only using television markets because there's an actual objective list of the rankings. That's not to say other places, they're great with race. I just think we are bad with it. I remember going up to Barry Larkin in the Reds clubhouse. I don't even know why. Again, this kind of speaks to the first topic of shit that I wouldn't do today with professional athletes. It's like a category in Jeopardy. Would you walk up to Barry Larkin and ask about race while he's sitting in his clubhouse? Fuck no. Well, that's what you did right here in 2002. And I don't know why it was a topic. There might have been some kind of race riots in Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati's got a history with race too. Sure. There's some common threads with the cities that have a history with racial issues. But I go up to him and he goes, and I go, do you have any thoughts on it? And I'm paraphrasing because, again, this was 2 decades plus ago. He goes, yeah, I do. He goes, but am I going to tell you? No.
That's a great quote.
Okay. Good talk. Because he's a Cincinnati native, so he's he's to Cincinnati what David Freese is to St. Louis, and Patty Maroon. So, I think that is a part of it. I think the fact that the city and county are separated is a part of it.
It's always my big thing.
I think it's a huge part of it. I think it. I also think the elected officials are people who would never be in charge of running a business, I guess. In other words, running a business, like getting picked to run a business, is, I think, this is arbitrary, is about as close to, minus sports, a merit-based system as we have in 2025, because it involves dollars, and somebody could hate a gay black guy more than anything in the world, but if that gay black guy makes them money, right. God bless America.
Right.
I think people treat who they vote for differently, and so I don't think we've had a lot of business leader caliber people in office in either St. Louis County or St. Louis City when it comes to our executives or mayors, and I think that has also played a role in it. I also think, and something that's kind of I always say if this were Family Feud, where would it be ranked? I don't even know if this would get votes if this were Family Feud. I think for a portion of St. Louis, and by portion I mean I don't even know if it's 1% of St. Louis. St. Louis is perfect for them. Perfect for them. And they have the money, and lots of it, and probably they don't live here year-round. But as things are, because they have the money, they have the power, and the last thing they want to do is have any change because what they've got is great. It's a low cost of living. If they want to fly to the West Coast, 3.5, 4 hours. If they want to fly to South Florida, if they have a place in Michigan, Idaho, the Northeast, it's all relatively recent, relatively close. And in addition to that, the cost of living here compared to those places is low. And their families oftentimes are in positions of power and money. And so living here is beneficial because people, why wouldn't they move? Well, because their empires are here. But the empire isn't necessarily one that is founded in the last 10, 20 years. It's been handed down and the money's here. And that crap can matter here, whereas they can go fly into Dallas or Atlanta or L.A. or New York and go, who the fuck are you?
Right.
Right. So when you have the money, you have the power. I don't really think I'm revealing anything here today. And I think it is in those hands where oftentimes things that would be for the betterment of the greater good is left behind. So to me, the obvious ones would be certainly the city-county being separated, the ridiculous amount of municipalities, and that's nonsense, the racial component of it, crime, but that's the question is, when did it go wrong? The crime is a byproduct of it going wrong. If you have residents and businesses there, you have dollars, therefore you have more police and more of a presence, and then that plays a role in reducing crime substantially. And then also I think you have people in power who want things to remain the exact same way. And by power, I mean the money, and then also the people who get elected, I don't think are necessarily. I think they might be playing to wings of voters versus going, yeah, this is what needs to be done. Might not be popular. Don't give a fuck. In 10 years, people will understand why we did it. They hate me. Don't give a fuck. This is what needs to be done. That's what I think. I don't know. The 1% earnings tax in the city of St. Louis, as somebody who paid it because our business was there, I don't know how much that factors in for companies.
Sure.
I know for the city of St. Louis, at the moment, they need that money. So it's not a case of like a luxury thing. It's needed. At the same time, the business I was operating, revenue-wise, relative to other businesses, it's like a pittance. Nobody would even care. And we're not there anymore. But we were there for, I guess, from 2005 through 2016. So do you, and I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't know or you don't have thoughts. You don't know or you don't have thoughts. But and it's not like I know. I'm giving my opinions as somebody who lived on Washington Avenue and who grew up in the city. But the question's about downtown, and then whose business was downtown as well at 19th and Locust.
Yeah, it's with me.
Do you guys ever even go there?
To where?
Downtown. Like outside of going to a sporting event. Like you and your buddies.
No, not downtown.
Just period. It's like not even.
No, but we're not.
Because
like
my social life, that was downtown.
Right. No. It'd be somewhere in the city, but not downtown. To me, it always gets back to the city and county being separate. Like, I talked to a buddy who just moved to Austin, and I think I talked maybe about this last week in the podcast, and he was like, yeah, it's just good to get to a bigger area. I was like, well, St. Louis's metro area is bigger than Austin's.
Blew him away.
And it's like, and then it's like you go on Google, and it's like, oh, I'm fact checking that, and it's like, well, St. Louis only has 310,000. Like, you've lived there for 18 years, you know it has more than 310,000. That's just how the city and county thing work. It's ridiculous we're having this conversation. And you talk about the earnings tax. You combine the two, earning tax gone. Public schools immediately get so much more funding and so much better. Like it's so ridiculous. It's crazy that you're the largest city in America that has these separate city-county things.
Right.
And that's right there. It alleviates so many issues.
The event where I got all fucked up on Saturday, and by the way, did end up at Napoli. we were in the TMA group chat yesterday, and we were bullshitting, and I don't know, Martin said, I spent the weekend at the lacrosse tournament. Where was he, in Indianapolis or something like that?
Yeah.
I said, we can talk about that, like he was being facetious. And I said, I'm so fucking hungover. I hope my wife won't mind me saying this. She threw up in the middle of the night. I was passed out, so I didn't notice.
Yeah, you got boot.
And she's like, all I had was like a few glasses of wine. I said, you had a Han bomb. You had a Han bomb.
Yep.
That might be the title of today's episode.
You had a Han bomb. ...
Oh, God. Yeah. But as we were walking, the event we were at was in the Central West End before we made our way to see Han at Napoli. Oh, what a scene. And, God. But I'm walking through, I'm going, this is a great area.
Yeah.
But yet I still see businesses, and this was, we're walking to the place like at 6:30 on a Saturday night, and some of them are just empty. And this is Central West End. This isn't downtown.
Right.
And I say this because I continue to believe, and I was actually thinking this as my wife and I were walking to the event, and what we were on, Lindell, I guess, or Euclid. No, we were on Euclid.
Yeah, Euclid.
I thought to myself, like if I were, I mean, of course, if you're 10 or 20, you're in the position usually to do this. But God, I wish there was a way that because it's going to take a while, I think. But if I had a ridiculous amount of money, I wouldn't go all in on it, but I would allocate a healthy portion to real estate in the city limits of St. Louis, which I know sounds ridiculous, but that's how you get your edge, because it sounds ridiculous to the greater population. I don't think it's going to continue on this trajectory. And that's not a message of approval. I don't care. I guess people might like to hear it. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. But it's what I think. And I think we have some things here where, if you go, well, Youngstown, Ohio used to be a thriving, but it didn't have the infrastructure, the history, the various interstates. Even though Lambert might be what it is at the moment, you still have a significant airport that's really kind of close to the majority of the population.
Right. Proximity to Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago, Indianapolis, Nashville, Kansas City. Right. I'm probably leaving something out. I got to experience the magic of Wichita this year.
Little Rock.
Little Rock. I experienced the magic of Little Rock 25 years ago. I don't know. I think it's going to happen. I just think it's going to come. It's going to take a while. Because I've been on the air talking about how fucked St. Louis is for a while, but not like shitting on it so much as this is so behind. But because St. Louis is almost like its own economy and ecosystem, rarely do people go to, for example, I was having this conversation with somebody. I'll tell you what I was having with starter packs, actually. Mm-hmm. What percentage, St. Louis has 3 million residents approximately. What percentage of the 3 million residents have been to both New York City and Los Angeles, California?
20%?
You're fucking out of your mind.
Too high?
Fuck yeah. Not a chance. 600,000 of the 3 million. No way. God almighty.
You think it's a single digit?
I mean, I'm just shipping it.
You think it's single digit?
Yes.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
And by the way, that isn't like a shot, even though I'm sure some people are taking it as a shot as they hear it at this moment. Only reason my ass was there because of my job.
Right.
It's not like I'm like flush and I'm like, let's go to New York this week and then we'll go to LA in a few months.
Yeah.
It's not it. It was my job. Okay. It's the only reason. I've only been in LA like 4 times. But you don't see, and LA and New York are kind of extreme examples. Yeah. But even other places, the travel radius is to the north is Chicago, to the west is Kansas City, to the south is either the lake or Destin.
Yeah, right.
And, that's kind of what you got for a lot of people. And by the way, that's the way that it doesn't make it wrong. Yeah. If you're insecure about it, you take it as a shot, fuck off. I don't care. It's the way that is. Is that Joe Pesci?
Yeah, well, it comes out every once in a while.
So I bring that up because I'm like, if you haven't seen other places, you don't know how behind we are. Right. And that is why I remember my guy texted me during the show. By the way, I'll read this text. Good guy, great guy. And he just texted me again, as a matter of fact. Michigan City, Indiana has Florida quality sand, no joke, because we were talking about on TMA with your trip to Michigan this weekend.
Places that you can, for the common man.
Absolutely, meat and potatoes. But I remember him, and he lived internationally. Brilliant guy. That's a guy that God should be running for office. Maybe I'll get that going. He would never do it, but he lived in Kuala Lumpur, and then they spent some time in Manhattan. And he goes, people in St. Louis have no idea that, like, St. Louis's skyline is like, I don't even know. I mean, you've been to Manhattan, right? I mean, it's like,
Oh yeah.
it's what, like a 20th
Yeah.
of,
Well, I'd say.
if that?
Yeah. It was real brief aside. When we would go visit my grandma in Jersey, we would always take the bus into the city.
Pony.
And hang out, yeah. And there would always be, every single time, it was so funny. There are people who have never even been close to this area before. And when you're driving from Jersey to the city, you pass Newark, New Jersey, and downtown Newark, and you can see the skyline of Newark. And so many of these people start taking pictures and everything, and they think it's Manhattan. I'm like, hey, turn to your right, and you'll see Manhattan, which is 80 times bigger than what you're looking at to the left of this like smokestack of Newark, New Jersey.
I was 24, just turned 24. This was a game, the Rams and Giants, is where they were cheering for the Giants in the press box at Giant Stadium. Fucking strangest thing ever. And Warner and Falk were hurt, and it was Trent Green and Justin Watson. They still went in there and beat Strahan and the Giants, and that was the team that wound up representing the NFC that year in the Super Bowl. I'd never been to New York. I'm not bullshitting you. This will sound so sad.
Yeah.
But it was me, Bernie Miklasz, and Jim Thomas in like a. We're in a bus. Probably we flew into Newark, and we're going to I guess the shuttle or the hotel probably because we stayed over there. But then that night I went over to Scores in Manhattan, the Stag Bar. But I remember driving along and seeing the World Trade Center, which wouldn't be around a year later.
Of course.
And I was like, "Is that the Empire State Building?" I'm a 24-year-old man.
Yeah.
Is that the Empire State Building, or is that like is there like a Chrysler Building or? What is that? Like, I've seen that before. I didn't know what the fuck it was.
That too. I think that's.
I mean, to an extent, it's still like whatever. And now, of course, because of what happened.
Yeah.
But at the time, and so I bring all of this up, and again, I'm using New York and LA. Those are the two biggest cities. Charlotte and I don't fucking know what else. San Jose. I'm just
Like I've never been to LA, but I've been to San Francisco.
Okay. So that's there's no way in hell 600,000.
Right,
Not a chance. Now, if you ask that question in Dallas, do you think the number would be higher?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm saying that to try to present it, even though again, I'm sure there are some people who will take this as like shitting on it. It's not. I'm trying to explain why I think we've fallen behind. Because our economy and our ecosystem and our social circles are so St. Louis centric that you don't see anything else to know. Oftentimes, when I interview people for Sound Story, and you may have experienced this because you do interviews for Sound Stories, we talked about it a little earlier, people will say, if they grew up like in the 40s and 50s, like, we were poor, but we didn't know any better, and we were happy because what do you know? Right. But if there is a better way, once you become aware of it, then you start to strive for it. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes the people who will jokingly or lovingly talk about St. Louis falling behind, they have some experience in seeing other cities to see it. And then it becomes really frustrating when you see who becomes our representatives to lead us, and you realize they're probably not necessarily going to be doing much leading at all. Mm-hmm. And so I think at the core, that plays a role in it. But who's electable? And then who is really going to go in there and go, okay, I don't really give a fuck. I might be unpopular, I might get voted out after a term, but this is what we're going to do. And then even if they are in a position, then they also have to get, if you're in the city, the Board of Aldermen, and if you're in the county, the council. So you might have all the ideas in the world, and then you find out this is a long, long putt to make. Yeah. But if you ask that question, that's my answer. That's called taxes, Doug says. I regrettably went to both. LA sucks. Yeah, I'm not an LA guy either. If you give me the choice between LA and New York, I'm taking New York all day. You always say you take LA, but you haven't been there.
But you love playing golf. If you live in Manhattan, best of luck.
Yeah, but I love playing golf. 100% right. But I hate phonies.
Yeah, it's fair.
And I feel like my love of golf would be superseded by now I guess you can avoid it. I guess I have kind of tried to avoid it with the exception of this past Saturday night. in my social experiences.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole thing.
Sure.
You strike me as a New York City guy.
Definitely, I've never been to LA, so but I think I would like LA a lot more. But I've been to New York. I could not live there. I could not live in Manhattan. I mean, I could, but
You're a Hoboken guy, chairman of the board.
like if we're talking peripheral cities, then New York it's a lot more interesting. Like if you can live in either Hoboken or Jersey City or even White Plains or some nice. That's where my parents were just at in New York for a funeral, and it's lovely up there. And then if you're talking like the outskirts of LA, if I can go like Newport Beach or something, which is a little further south, but I mean that'd be fucking great too.
Like in the LA social scene, I don't know. I mean that's what I'm thinking of when I think of it, and the traffic. I don't do well.
Brutal.
I mean, just kind of understand it when you're.
I have friends out there. They're like, it's no joke.
That's the deal. It's just you just kind of understand, and there's nothing you can do. But that's the proverbial cost of doing business.
Yeah, they say that's the frustrating part. Is you don't like some places are 20 minutes away during some parts of the day, and some parts it's an hour away in some parts of the day, and other parts of the day everything's only a half hour away. But if you like watch LA movies, you think you can get around in 20 minutes because they're never sitting in traffic in LA movies.
Minus Larry David. And Curb Your
Nor are they ever dealing with like a hobo shitting on the ground in New York movies because that happens too.
One final one here, Papers. Email in. I mean, we'll get to as many as we can. T. McKernan at InsideSTL.com. Hey there, Tim. Not sure if this topic has been broached before, but would love to get your insight and Jackie B's as well. I was curious how you got your son into golf. I have a 6-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter, and I'd really like to get them to enjoy golf as much as I do. I came to love golf a little later in life, so I really have no baseline for getting a kid to bite. My son loves sports. He loves soccer and baseball and wants to play flag football. I take him to the driving range, and he's been out to, quote, play golf with me on the course, but I'm not sure it's sticking quite yet. I think he and my daughter are still pretty young. Even when I consider signing him up for a lesson or a clinic, I always think he's just too young yet because he really hasn't shown any interest. Love the show and appreciate to any tips or tricks you've stumbled. I'd probably appreciate to hear any tips or tricks you've stumbled upon that have worked. Thanks. That's from Anonymous, please, exclamation point. Jackson, you played at a younger age than I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just start as going to the driving range with my dad. And I remember getting to play my first like actual round where I like carried my clubs.
Power team?
Played. No, it's Ruth Park. Always Ruth
Ruth Penn.
Always Ruth Penn. And my dad still plays out there all the time today. But that I remember that, loving that, and then getting cut from baseball freshman year. It was rained out. It was a rainy week, so golf tryouts pushed back a week. Baseball tryouts went inside, got cut from baseball, and then tried out for golf and got the bug. But I also grew up in a post-Tiger Woods world.
Yeah.
And I think if you were just born 10 years before I was born in 98, if you were born in 88, you kind of grew up, golf didn't have a lot of, as the kids would say now, aura or swagger around it. Yeah. It was kind of viewed, from what I know, as like like an older person.
Absolutely.
Leisure game.
Absolutely.
And then Tiger came in and was like, oh, you can be a rock star and a golfer at the same time. And I'm sure old John Daly into that as well. And that, I think, was a material change in how younger people viewed golf. And now, in the 2025 world, it's like if you're not playing, you're the odd man.
Yes, that's correct. And the YouTube golf thing is a big thing.
Huge with the kids.
I may have told this story. If I have, I apologize. I don't know if I did. That my older son's favorite player, again, for whatever reason, is Tommy Fleetwood. Tough day at the Travelers last Sunday. Oof. And Grant Horvat, who's a great YouTube golfer.
Unbelievable swing.
Yeah,
one of the smoother swings
holy
I've ever
crap.
seen.
Long levers,
but it looks like he's not even trying. He hammers it.
And he was playing with Fleetwood, and my son wanted to watch that. Hey, can we watch this when we get home? And I'm like, sure, no problem. And then the U.S. Open's on, and he was interested in who won, and this is a guy who plays, but he was going to go out with his mom for ice cream. I go, hey, the U.S. Open's on. There's like 2 holes left. It's like, okay. It didn't even, it didn't even cross his mind. The point being the YouTube golf thing, that is where I'm pretty sure I told the story, but I met with a guy who's involved in the game, and we might be working on something together. He's not from St. Louis, but he flew in, and we met a couple weeks ago. And he was saying he was at this event. It was being played at Harbortown, and you got pros out there, and it's a signature event because, it's all the dollars, and that's the way the tour sets it up, that you have the Masters and then RBC Heritage the next week at Harbortown. And the biggest gallery was following along Wesley Bryan, who wasn't even playing in the event, but he's a YouTube golfer along with his brother, the Bryan brothers, George and Wesley Bryan. And that's where the kids wanted to be. They wanted to see the YouTube golfers. They didn't necessarily, not to say they didn't care about Scotty Scheffler, but the biggest gallery was following along the YouTube golfers. And in fairness, Wesley Bryan and his brother from South Carolina, but still, it's the YouTube golf thing. As far as getting somebody, my son plays. I think the reason he plays, which isn't going to help out this gentleman's question, is because he's just used to going out on the course with me, and so inadvertently, because going back to, God, as far as, he was 6 months old when we were in Jupiter for 2 months in 2018. And then we went in 2018, 19, 20, and then lived there for 6 months in 2021, went again in 2023. So when we were there in particular for the 6 months, but he's been going out on the golf course with me. I really want to kill this fly, and I almost had it.
It's been in here for a while.
Pat Morita and Ralph Macchio.
It's really impressive. We've got an hour and 10 minutes.
God, I thought I got it that time.
Yeah, he's a little fucker.
Hiya! You got him?
Oh,
you got Jackson. Got him.
If he's not dead, he's wounded.
He's wounded. So he's been going out with me the course forever, and I think that played a role in it. And then he would, I guess wasn't thinking about it. He would swing some clubs. I remember one time at the place where we were in 2021, and I guess this was important with the benefit of hindsight. He had like these plastic clubs. I think it's called the Littlest Golfer, I think, is the name of the brand. Now, again, he was 3, so these are plastic clubs.
Sure.
But he would go out on the range with me, and he would swing these things. And a lady came over. I could have sworn she didn't tell me this because that'd be fucking vile. But somebody came over and she goes, "Oh, what were you talking to her about?" And I go, "She was just telling me that, talking to me about my son's golf swing since he's 3, has a nice swing, whatever." She goes, "Oh, she's the sister of the White Sox owner." And I'm like, "Okay, was that Jerry Reinsdorf's sister?" I have no idea. And they might have a million different owners. And,
sure.
So who knows? Point being, she goes, "He has a nice swing for being as young as he is, but he should be hitting different clubs. Those are plastic clubs. Go to uskidsgolfer.com. Or US Kids Golf. US Kids Golf."
Oh, I had a set.
Oh, did you really?
Oh, yeah. It was Walter Hagen had like kids clubs. I remember.
Okay.
And then US Golf. Those were my first clubs.
US Golf. That's different.
US Kids Golf.
Oh, US Kids
Little
Golf.
American flag.
Yes,
logo.
that's it. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
those.
That's.
It was like driver, 5 wood, 9, 7, 5 iron.
That's so. I got him though. I would have never known about that.
Right.
And he was 3, and I got him those, and then and that was early in our stay. That was like in probably January, and we were there till June. And still, I'll occasionally get these little things that pop up on my phone, memories, and I'll see him, and I'm like, God, I didn't realize he would go out, just me and him. It was the greatest. God, to have this course, because a lot of the people in the area were older, and the younger people aren't going to be there. And so I would go out at 5 o'clock and play like probably 18 holes, and he would just ride with me, and then he'd just hit balls, and we're just fucking off. And by proxy, he then... it's not like I was teaching him anything. He's 3, but he just started seeing it, and I think that played a role in it. And then when we got back to St. Louis, when I would play with guys, he would just come with me. I did that because he behaved himself, which you've met him. That's probably surprising to hear, but he really did. But then behave himself, and they loved it. They just thought it was cool, I guess, that a 3 or 4-year-old would come out on the course and just he kind of became like a mascot of sorts, and then he wasn't going to fuck with him. And we're gambling too. This isn't like slap and tickle shit. But he would never, and so he would see it, and it became like a thing he liked, but it wasn't necessarily like the game. He liked the stuff around it. He associated with being with his dad, probably, associated with being with the guys.
Hanging outside.
That there's a video which I may have talked about also. Patty Harrington talking about when you take your kids to the golf course, cut them off before they say they're tired. Always make it positive, and then do something like go get, like
Ice cream or
an ice cream, or I think he calls it a pop.
I wish you were going to do some accent.
I was about to go into it, but I didn't want to offend people, the Irish community. That to make it, something that they associate with being fun. Don't fucking be golfed at. I'm so. In general, I've always said way back before we knew each other that if and when I had kids, I would not coach because I knew the show is, got the reputation in some places that it does. And I never wanted to put my kids in a spot where all it takes is one mom or dad being like, well, he shouldn't be around kids because they talk about this or that. So I'm just like, so I, no matter what, it already in my mind would be like, I just am not going to say anything. If a coach ever talks to me about anything, I'm like, do whatever you want to do.
Right,
Same thing with the teachers. Whatever you see fit, that's that.
Right.
I'm in support of it. You never have to worry about that. Same thing with golf. And now I'm kind of talking about when somebody starts playing, which wasn't necessarily the question, but get a coach.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure if you can picture, for those, you're not there yet, but when you have kids, I could be Tiger Woods. He ain't going to listen to me.
Right.
So that's it. But as far as getting them, and that's well beyond golf. That can be any sport. But as far as getting them into the game, what I did, it wasn't a plan. We go to family golf all the time. I'll be there today. And we would get done hitting balls, and then I would always go in there and kind of doing the Harrington thing, getting like a pretzel and a soda.
Yeah.
And then give them coins to fuck around on that Golden Tee in that little restaurant area. And then that's what they think of.
Right.
With it.
Exactly.
Yep. That's fun. And sitting here going, oh, your swing's not on plane. I need you to, your grip needs to be stronger.
Yeah.
I can't even, I'm still wiping my 3-year-old's ass. We're not at a point here where we can start breaking down the wedge game.
It is tough to talk about attack angle moments after wiping your kids'
Hey, I noticed you got a chicken wing.
Yeah.
Let me change your diaper and we'll go work on compression and bowing your wrists.
For a second, I thought that there was a chicken wing in the diaper, and I got concerned. I got very concerned. No, I think the late great Kobe Bryant talked about something similar.
Oh, what did he say?
Well, he's like, with a child, like you can't ever force them. As intense of a competitor as he was, like he was like, I never wanted my daughters to like feel like their dad is forcing them to do this. Like when a kid, and this is what I remember him always saying, like when a kid wants to do everything on their own, when they want to go and work on their own and grind on their own time and do it themselves, that's when you know that they're into it. That's when you know that they're truly into it.
That's it.
And then when they're kind of being forced into it, or, hey, we signed you up for this, you're doing it.
Couldn't agree more. That's how I approached hockey this year. My wife and I think I might have discussed this. Nobody fucking cares. I'm just trying to show some self-awareness. I said, do you want to play hockey? This is this past year. And he's like, he was thinking about it, and he's like, I don't really think so. And I'm like, all right. Then to me, that's the answer. That was it. And my wife, she goes, I think we're giving him too much latitude. I think at the time he was 6. He was about to turn 7. It's like, I think we got to tell him he's doing it. I'm like, but then if we're telling him that he's not going to want, and on that one, you got to get up early.
Yeah, that's different than
it's a different deal,
things.
So like you've worked with him on basketball because he loves it.
Yeah.
And the golf thing is the same way. It's got to be fun. You can't make somebody into a good golfer. I think eventually if they love it, this thing, God, there's 2 kids, so they started talking to him in soccer. I've talked about these kids in his class. I won't give the names because that wouldn't be cool. They're fucking 7. But I'm telling you, I just will be, I can't wait to watch their careers because it's just something else. I probably wouldn't go if I didn't have a kid, but because they're on my son's team, and this is CYC, they obviously play out the high level stuff. It's borderline dangerous for the other kids on the other team because they kick the ball so hard, and it's been visible for the last, I guess, 3 soccer seasons. And again, they're 7, so this stuff was clear early on. It's having been around this stuff for a lot of years, I have never seen the level here. And so that at the event where I was shit faced on Saturday, their parents were there. We just wanted to bullshit and separately. And they're not bragging themselves, but I ask about it, and maybe because of what I do for a living,
Sure.
they'll talk about it, but they're very careful to say, I'm only saying this because you're asking. I said, I am asking. If you were running up to me and I didn't ask,
Yeah.
and that'd be, I'm not interested.
There's those kind of people.
And God, yeah. Anyway, and he's, it's so interesting, big time, the stuff that goes on, the way they're already thinking, but they should. I mean, the talent level, from my standpoint, the gap is so great. But the thing that stood out to me, I had a longer conversation with one of the kids' dads, and I said, when my dad first saw this kid play, he goes, which one is his dad? And I said, over there, but I don't really know him. Most of my dad, being my dad, goes down there and talks to him. I can picture the conversation.
No deterrent there. There's no deterrent there.
Hey, buddy, your son is really good. I mean, this kid is really talented. What's the background here? And so I recall that, and again, I think this was either 2 or 3 years ago. So they're only 7, so we're talking about like half their life ago. And the guy says, I can't get him to take his spikes off, his cleats off. We get home, he goes back into the backyard, and he is just out there by himself, kicking the ball, juggling. And so we were talking this past Saturday, again, coincidentally. I'm oftentimes like, I wonder if these guys are like, boy, you are really interested in my son. But I'm telling you, and the thing is, even without these 2 kids, the class just has athletes.
Yeah.
And I say this respectfully, and it's not, I'm just saying it, it's not because of my son. He is not, when I'm thinking of this, it's not a shot. I don't want people to think like this is Tim bragging on his son session. It's not that at all. There are just some really talented athletes in this class, but then you have these 2 who really stand out. And so we were bullshitting about it. He was telling me some of these stories. He goes, we went to Miami to see Messi play. And he goes, now I played, high school. I didn't play anywhere, beyond that. He goes, so I can see some things that, he goes, but so-and-so is 7, and he is watching he goes, he's talking about the strategy that, Miami is using in order defensively. He's watching the defenders shift as a unit as opposed to, and he's making these observations and talking about them. He is studying the game. He has soccer cards, so he knows about the random players.
Right, the nitty-gritty.
Right. And he just has a love for it. And he goes, his favorite time when they have games is 8 o'clock at night at Soccer Park, because he knows that there's not a game afterwards. And then what he is going to do is he's going to stay out. And he goes, it gets to the point now where they turn the lights off on us because it's 45 minutes after the game. And it's just me and him out there because he can't leave. And so I love hearing those stories. And the reason I love hearing those stories is I had the same passion for baseball, but I didn't have any of the talent. So to see somebody who has the talent, and I can see that, you'd see it. I mean, anybody could see it. It's something to watch. It truly is. It stands out.
Right.
And it's not even he has the power, but he also has the moves
Skill.
to
And that's
and they can't he just can't be stopped.
Especially when some kids can't
it's like in the basketball, broke his ankles.
Right.
That's what you're seeing.
You have kids dribbling with both hands, and you can't do it, and then you have another kid who can cross over and go between his legs,
and they fall over.
That's night and day.
That's what's going on here.
Right.
But then he has the love for it.
And
that's the perfect storm. That's the thing. Yeah. And that's why I am so, it's one thing if it's like the kid is good, but he's kind of whatever, and he's just like the athlete who's good at everything. And then maybe he finds this one that he loves as he grows up, and then he winds up being, Doug tells the story of some of these kids, I think one of whom played professionally in something that he coached, and he was just great at everything. And that's not to say that this kid isn't good at other things. It's just in the side, he stands out. But what stands out to me specifically with this kid is he can't get enough of the game. It is, he lives for it. I mean, it was just the greatest day of his life to see. When I see him, he's always wearing a Messi jersey. So
yeah.
I was just so happy they got to do it.
That's
and
awesome.
But then when I was talking to his dad this past Saturday night, and he's talking about that love for it, and then he's got the talent.
Right.
And he might have the size too. In soccer, I guess it doesn't matter. Messi being a
Yeah,
perfect
not
example of that.
Depends on position, but yeah.
Yes, but it's just like, I can't wait to. I think I've talked about maybe. Fuck, I don't know. I always say that. I think the name is Maddie Di Maria, if I'm not mistaken. Which would mean nothing to the vast majority of people who listen to this podcast. But I was friends with her mom when we were back in high school, and maybe at Missouri as well. I don't recall, but definitely high school. And she was the Gatorade National Player of the Year as a freshman.
Jesus.
As a freshman at Koryazu Soccer.
Holy shit.
As a freshman.
Oh, my God.
And so, and her dad, Jeff DiMaria, I think he played at St. Louis University, and he might have played professionally as well. I don't know. I don't know him as well, but I knew her mom. And it just happened to be reading the sports section one day, and I saw the name, and I'm like, I'm reading, and then I read more, and I'm like, this was before they even won state last year, and they were talking about her stats, and then I saw she got named Gatorade National Player of the Year as a freshman. If there was a Gatorade National Player of the Year in St. Louis, as a senior, it'd be a big deal, much less as a freshman. It never has happened before.
Tatum won it, I remember it being a
Is that right?
big deal, yeah.
Oh, did he win it?
Senior year.
Senior, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just... It's like when you have that. Now, I don't know her level. My guess is she has an incredible amount of passion for it. It kind of goes without saying, but I don't know her. I know her mom, and I talked with her mom. I don't think so about it. Anyway, that fires me up for whatever reason. I have no idea. It just does. Like, if we are privy to seeing the beginning of the book, so to speak, like, it would be a surprise if I think most people would agree with this, if the Gatorade National Player of the Year as a freshman, assuming health, always a big variable,
huge,
isn't on the U.S. women's national team.
Right.
I mean, that's the trajectory. Once you're there, it's never been done before, so why wouldn't that be the trajectory? And she's playing in South County in St. Louis, and I, in my case, knew her mom, and so to see, when you see like the ingredients, and then they're quality people, and you see it, like that's how it happens. Now, this guy just is simply asking, how do you get into it? And I'm telling you, the way it wound up happening for my son was, a totally circumstantial thing. I've had a few people. It's interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, the TMA Christmas party, I had somebody come up to me and ask, so this isn't the first time I've been asked about it. You've been out on the course with my son. You've been with my son quite a bit, with both basketball and golf. It just happened. It wasn't like I'm dying to play. Right. Here's the thing. Because this isn't what you're asking, but it is a real thing. It's a tough game. Is an adult, we won. We had a match, me and the gambling gentleman, on Saturday, and the two-man thing, and we won. But I played so bad, didn't hit one green in regulation on the back nine. I'm telling you, Jackson, I don't know what the fuck happened, because putting, if anything, is probably the reason why my handicap's low, because I don't hit the ball right. I mean, I missed two putts to win holes from this distance.
Yeah, 4 feet maybe.
I think it might have been less than that. That I take for granted. But when I was playing with Chairman Kurt, Doug, and Producer Joe, I think I didn't have one birdie in that round. But I think I might have been even, and had like that putt in my stupid little $20 game with Joe on number 4. From that distance, and I don't even think about them. Right. I mean, they're just kind of they're like free throws.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's just like a whatever thing. I know I take it back. Fortunately, I keep it online, and then you just go through. And there's not a whole lot to it. It's it. It's not like, it's a physical.
The hole's
act.
not moving.
It's an easy fucking hole. Now, if I'm above the hole and it's moving, that's a different deal. But anyway, and I missed it, and it wasn't like I wasn't thinking about it. I'm like, wow, that hasn't happened in so long. Right. So then I'm like, you know what? In a way, it's kind of good that it happened on a day where it doesn't matter. Not that the next day would matter, but for our stupid little world, it mattered. It was like a semifinal match in this thing, and I'm like, that's good. I'll make sure that I don't just take him for granted, and I'll pay attention. So then I have one on 6 the next day in this match, and there's no way it was 4 feet. It's probably 3 feet on 6. I think we're 1 up in the match. We were 1 up in the match, so this kind of mattered. We're about to go 2 up. It's a nothing, but I gave it too much credit, and I just barely missed it left, but I still missed it. I mean, God, I make it 10 out of 10 times, and what the fuck? And then on 9, now it's in my head.
Then it gets in your head.
But I still wasn't even thinking of it. But now I'm like, okay, shit, I missed the one yesterday.
Yeah,
I was thinking about the one I missed yesterday on 6, and I then took the time to line it up and be like, okay, I missed it, so don't take it for granted.
Right.
And so then maybe I overthought it, which is why, because I played some break, which was just stupid, so I missed it on the side where I gave it too much credit. And then on the one at 9, I just missed it. I go, what? Like, I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
I hit a 20-footer to have the hole on 12, but I've missed now 2, and I honestly think that is the reason why I was 0 for 9 greens in regulation on the back 9, because I was so, like, in my head.
It threw you for a loop.
Right, truly do.
Yeah.
And so we won the match because of my partner, sure as hell not because of me. And, you know, we walk into the bar afterwards, and the guys, you guys win. Then, yeah. Like, why aren't you smiling? I'm like, I'm not, because I played so fucking shitty.
Yeah.
And if we lost, I would have been like, I cost us this thing that I know really matters to my partner, and, you know, I'd certainly like to win. And I just, like, fucked me up. I tell that anecdote. I'm a 48-year-old man who's you know, played $800 golf holes. You know, I mean, I've been through this shit. Now I haven't played in real competitions, but
You approached Barry Bonds in the leather chair.
I Barry Bonds in the leather chair, and here I am, and I'm like kind of pissy.
Yeah, right.
Because I missed these putts. I mean, again, you wouldn't know it, but I know, and I think then I'm looking back on, and I go, God, what in the fuck happened on the back 9? And I looked at my stats, and I go, holy shit, I didn't agree in regulation, but I still parred 4 holes, getting up and down. But holy shit, that's off. I tell that anecdote. Imagine if you're 6 or 7.
Yeah.
That's the reason I tell the anecdote. It's a long way to get home. And so I guess what I'm saying is be careful with the golf thing.
Yeah. Golf can make you confront some demons you didn't know you had.
Be careful with the golf thing. I don't know under what circumstance I will talk about my son and his sports or academics or anything like that. I'll talk off air with, you know, somebody such as yourself who's aware of stuff, but that's just not the way I'm going to operate. And I don't think that's heroic, but that's just the way that I'm going to attempt to handle this as I raise kids. But it's something that you don't think about it until you experience it, and I've now seen it, and it's across the board. It's a different deal. Like, for example, my son plays goalie on that soccer team, which is perfect because with the talent on the soccer team, he could basically sit back there and smoke darts if he wanted to. And he's going to have a shutout because the talent in front of him. Yeah. But on the rare occasions that somebody actually does get a shot on the goal because somehow it actually happened, and he gives up a goal, he's fine, you know. But a bad shot in golf, for whatever reason, I think the logic would tell you it's because it's an individual sport and you're not there yet as a 7-year-old. And if you care, see the guys around who see it, and I'm like, oh my God, they're like, oh, this is great. That means he cares. You know, there are a lot of, this isn't limited to, there's a lot of emotion at this age with this game. Hell, there could be emotion at older ages.
I've seen it all.
Yeah, and I'm sure because you played it at actually competitive levels. And so I personally love that he plays and, you know, whatever, but I guess what I'm saying is proceed with caution. This isn't as easy, not easy isn't the right word. This has some downside, I think, versus soccer or hockey or baseball or, you know, whenever
I think playing
basketball.
both is such like and I say that from personal.
Playing both, what do you mean?
Play both team sports and individual sport. Like,
yes.
I'm saying from experience, like I played basketball and I played golf in high school, and it's just world of difference in so many ways. Like there was nothing better than after 4 or 5 months of basketball practice where it was 2.5 hours of like running and grinding every single day to be like, we're going to hit balls for 45 minutes. You want to go play 9, go ahead and then get out of here. It's like, this is great.
You need that team, like, yeah, I've been saying that for as long as this, I guess, has been going on, just like a few years. I hope that he wants to play a team sport, and I hope if he does want to continue to play golf, to play golf, great. But I really prefer, if it's not my call, that he also has that team sport thing to go along with the golf.
Because it's great to learn how to work with other people to accomplish same goal. It's also great to understand like how you can contribute in other ways outside of like if it's basketball, scoring a basket. Like you can contribute in countless other ways. And then something like golf where it's like it's all accountability. You know, did I do what I did to do? Like
it can be bad breaks.
Yeah.
And you know, I was going to actually show you. I actually was thinking of you. It's funny, when we were in that teammate group text, I was out in the fairway with him during one of the events yesterday. And a kid who he played with yesterday, who drives in from Indiana for these tournaments, it hits the ball. Like, I think I'd beat this kid. You know, he's 7.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, you know, I can. My misses at my age are going to be wider delta, and he somehow has a driver that like looks like an adult's driver, and he just hits the shit out of it. Yeah. So if you're a kid and you don't understand that, it ain't going to happen. You cannot. I mean, I guess you can. There are levels. Yeah. Like, I cannot beat Scotty Scheffler. I'm at 100% peace with that. You know,
right?
It's just the way that it works. And golf has that situation. You know, I mean, I guess theoretically you could get in the box against Tarek Skubal, and theoretically you could make contact. I guess that's a better chance mathematically than beating Scotty Scheffler. Making contact.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Getting on base, different story.
Right, absolutely. To hit a rope to the left side of the infield as a right-hander. Probably not happen. But either way, you could just like swing through and maybe.
You get lucky, right.
But I'm playing 18 holes against Scotty. It's just not, there's not a chance.
No.
Fuck a guy who's a +3 handicap. It's not happening, much less that guy.
Right.
So that's the different thing about it. But that awareness comes with age and experience to like try to break that down to a kid. So that's why I'm saying it's like this. I don't know. I'm in the middle of it, in the very beginning of it. So I'm all for it. And I know this person wasn't asking like about playing events and all of that stuff. But I guess what I would say is if they want to do it, then great. But if not, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily even the age to do. Like if they like going to the range, then all day long, and by all day long I mean then do it. I'm not saying do it all day long, but then do it. But if not, then it's not going to go anywhere if you're like they don't want to do it. Right. You know. So that's that. That's it. I'm for me it's so black and white. Same thing on the hockey thing when my son, he's like, I don't really think I want to play that. I'm like, okay, then we're not doing it. Right. But it was interesting, and I remember talking to Doug about it because I really like admire Doug's parenting. I just feel like he has a very, I don't know what the right word for it is. Like a great wisdom, but it's not just because he's done it. I feel like he did it well. Mm-hmm. What the fuck do I know? But I don't know. It's my sense. And it's not asking my dad because that's personal. That's his grandchild. And it's like, what do you think on this? Yeah, if you don't want to do it, then you know he's not going to want to do it, and then he's going to. And I'm like, then how can I make?
Yeah.
But in my wife's mind, she's like, no, he's 6. You know.
The way I see it, and as this is coming from a gentleman that has no kids, but was once a kid, more recently than most. I think sampling everything sports-wise is a great idea.
So
especially
he did it for a year,
yeah. And if after like soccer for me, insta call like this ain't for me.
You're out.
Like I don't work well with my feet. Not for me. Basketball, instant yes, love it, love every second of it, love the culture around it, loved watching it. It's all me. Baseball is 50-50. I tried lacrosse in middle school.
Nothing doing?
Enjoyed it until it was probably like my 5th or 6th game. I played defense, and so you have a longer stick than everybody.
Yeah.
And I scooped the ball up, and I flung it down the field, and there was a guy coming at me while I was trying to do this. And I was thinking to myself, I'm used to basketball. I didn't even know all the rules of lacrosse. I was like, all right, once I get rid of the ball, you know, they can't touch me. You know, it's like basketball. You can't touch a guy who doesn't have the ball in his hand. You can't foul somebody like that. So I fling the ball down the field. I was like, all right, thank God. And this kid's still running at me.
Still is, yeah.
And he I mean, railroaded me. I got decleated, like fell hard on my ass. I was like, never mind. This is not for me. I was like, this hurt like a motherfucker. I thought once I didn't have the ball in my hand, they couldn't touch me. Never mind. So that was done. But then, you catch the bug in golf. That's the thing. It's like through osmosis, the kids, if you're going to the driving range a lot, I feel like from my experience, I always went to be with my dad and my brother playing sports. So they would go to the driving range. I go with them. And then eventually, if you go out and play, like the kid catches the bug. Like they hit a couple good shots in a row. They put together a little score, and they're like, "This is the coolest thing ever."
Right.
Then they're good.
So
like,
I think so.
Out.
That's interesting you say that. That's why he got into it, because of what he associated with was being with
like
the guys.
Through osmosis.
Exactly right. It wasn't about a swing.
Right.
I look back on it and I go, I don't even know how, because I never taught him how to swing a club ever.
Mm-hmm.
But he was just around it, and I guess he watched me. And so then that's how he picked up on it.
Yeah, right.
And so then that's just what he...
It's not like you teach your kid English. They just pick up
Yeah,
on
exactly.
it.
And that's what it was. But then he liked it, and then he wound up being whatever at it. And so that's how it happened. But it was through, which I guess probably doesn't do this gentleman who asked the question much of a favor. But I guess that there's your answer. If you're going to go out and play...
Yeah, bring them with you.
Bring them with you.
Yeah.
That's it. And ideally, you might have some space. Certainly, if you do it at night, in summer nights, you can go out there late and take them out there. That's it. And I guess maybe I would say the golf course is the key, not the range.
Yeah.
Because then they're not stagnant. You're not kind of all in on, are they going to swing? And then the range, they're going to be swinging for the first time. Balls are going to be going everywhere, sideways and swinging and missing and shit. And then Evan, what else are you going to do? You're going to, then you're going to, this is I'm actually really workshopping is, then you're going to go, well, no, this is how you do it, this is how you hold. And what is your kid going to do? I don't, occasionally, because my 3-year-old is a lefty, and oh my God, when I tell him he can't go, that's the only time he gets upset, because that's all he wants to do. He wants to go with his dad and his brother. It's all he wants to do. I'm sure you were talking about going with your dad and your brother as a younger kid. All right, so you get it. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this can relate to that. Can't do it. But because, again, through osmosis, he goes up there and he swings. Now, he's left-handed, but he grips it like a right-hander. He's like Matthew Fitzpatrick chipping, He's cross-handed. And he hits it.
Yeah.
But I can't fucking talk. Again, I'm wiping his ass. I can't go, okay, your grip's off. You gotta, I'm just like, okay, enjoy it and whatever, and we'll get to a point. But I'm not gonna ruin the fact that he's happy as shit, just hitting balls, and he's there with me and his brother by spending time on trying to get him to grip the club the right way. It'll come, whatever. And if it doesn't, who gives a shit?
Might become the world's greatest cross-handed golfer.
Exactly right.
Everyone made fun of Rick Barry when he did grandma shots in his free throws. See how that worked out for him.
Yeah. So I think about that. So now that I'm workshopping, you go to the range, you're all in on, is that going to work out?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to like it? You go on the golf course, and what I would do is I'd be like, okay, ride with me. I'd hand him my phone, because I just want my wife's happy. Yeah. Both our asses are out of the house. She doesn't have to watch him while I'm playing golf. I'm happy because I'm playing golf. He would behave. He really did. Now, he'd run in the bunkers. Usually kids love running in the bunkers.
It is fun.
And dick around there. Goddamn,
a lot of space,
that's it. That's it. Yeah, so they can run around. And if you do it at the right time and nobody's out there,
right? It's private.
Yes, you got that time. Yeah. That's actually it. Right. That's the answer. That is the answer. It's not the range.
Yeah,
it's not there, because at the range, and I'm taking it again. I'm really going into this. I'm just thinking through it psychologically. I don't know if I ever. I noticed things yesterday when my son was playing. I'm like, what in the fuck is this? But I knew he didn't feel well, so I'm like, but either way, I wasn't going to say anything, because I know it's going to happen. It's going to be,
right.
Whatever a 7-year-old would say, essentially the equivalent of fuck off. Right. So I'm not going to say anything. But the shit was all kinds of out of whack. But if you're the parent, it's not going to go well. So what happens when you take them to the range? Inevitably, because what else you do? They're just hitting balls. So then you're going to start teaching them. Well, this gentleman's talking about a 3- and a 6-year-old. They don't want to hear it. The 3-year-old you can't communicate with, right. And the 6-year-old isn't going to want to hear it.
Right.
Now, if you set them up with an instructor, but do you want to invest in an instructor when they've never swung a club before?
Golf camps are good.
That's a nice play. That's a nice play too.
Because there was people their age.
But it's also I think it's really frustrating, which sounds insane. I'm like, okay, my 3-year-old really likes it. They have this thing at Family Golf called Birdie Bandits. So I get him, and I'm like, I can't believe I did this. It was like 2 months ago. And he goes out there, and he actually was, but he's like with older kids. And when you're 3, and then you're with 5-year-olds, that like matters,
Huge.
you know?
That's a massive difference.
Right. But the instructor can't talk to him. No. You know, he's 3. I mean, you can, but whether he's going to get it or not. And so you have that going on, in addition to, you know, that, I don't know, that he didn't think that was fun, you know? Right. Too young. Yeah. The thing, you want to get him into golf. I actually feel like I've done, this is discovered take guy, stumbles into take guy. Martin Kilcoyne's stumbles into take guy. Yeah. Take them out on the course with you. And if they have a club or clubs for them, that's fine. Littlest golfer. If they're super young, U.S. Kids Golf, you can get just one little wedge. All my 3-year-old left-handed has a little wedge. He's not strong enough to swing, even though they make drivers for him. He's not strong enough to swing the drive. I mean, he can hit it, but it's still too heavy. Right. So, you know, he's got his right-handed grip as a left-hander, and he just sits there and he just hammers it, you know. Doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but just as happy as can be. But it's go out on the golf course, because then they can run around. And that's what I do on probably this Tuesday and Wednesday. I will be, you want to find me? That's where I'll be at 7 o'clock. And I'll be the happiest motherfucker, because I can practice and hit shots. I can play, I guess. I know I'm not really going to be keeping a score. And then they're out there and they're happy. But there's that. And then there's just riding along in the cart. And just see what happens. That's it. It's not the range. Yeah. This is substantial. This is a discovery, because I bet a lot of parents are like, yeah, I'd like this guy. I take my kids to the range, but they don't really get into it. The range isn't it. Because when you associate, I love playing golf, what do you associate with? You don't associate with the range. You associate it with playing, but also probably with your friends or family members. You don't associate with just like a bucket of balls and hitting. That's not what it is. You're having some booze, listening to some music, gambling, fucking off, watching some guy do his best with the beverage cart girl. The whole deal can be unfortunate.
It's a sitcom in itself in that.
So that's the move. There's the answer. I actually answered the question. It took 40 minutes.
I love it. That's a great answer.
But that actually, because I thought about, like, how did my son get into it? And it's like, oh, yeah. And I remember, I don't know how many times people go, so how long did he last? I go, all 18 holes. But it's not like he was out there playing. Right. Jesus. He just would ride along.
Yeah. And that's such a big barrier to entry. Like, if the child can get over that, then,
yeah.
You know.
And that's what it was.
Sky's the limit.
That's what it was. And the guys were cool to him.
Right.
Now, if he would have caused shit and loud and running around, it wouldn't have lasted.
But you would have.
Oh, I would have. That would have been the end of it. It would have been one and done. But yeah, he was just good, and that's what it was. But I'm telling you, and I guess there's this stigma with, oh, you hand them your phone, you don't want to parent. Okay, it's fine. It's like when I was coming up, video games. It's like now some of these guys are billionaires because they built code and became programmers. So I just disagree with that whole thing. It stimulates the mind, whatever. Either way, that's it. Take them out, ride along with you. Your plan is, if they want to run around, they're great. If not, hand the phone and you just sit there and play. Right. And then then take them in afterwards for like a whatever it is, ice cream, a soda, whatever it is you're comfortable doing. Fuck around on golden tea, whatever. So they associate it with being with you and it being fun. They don't associate with you trying to teach them a grip and how to hit the golf ball. That's when it isn't fun. Jackson, I think we've actually done a service today.
I think so too.
Yeah.
How about pod? That? Yeah. Real good pod.
Good pod, yeah.
And it's going to be fucked up when it's called So I Had a Han Bomb. Because that is very representative, of course, what we talked about.
What percentage of the audience will get that? I think more than New York, both New York and L.A. Alan Dadeville said 5%, by the way. I think that might be high. Because 5% would be...
half a person out of 10.
150,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's certainly starting to get into the right range.
You're probably warmer. I was probably way too high.
Hey, I was willing to put the whole bankroll in the middle, give you 50 to 1 on your money.
That'd be a fun census. Have you been to New York and LA?
Yeah.
But it doesn't count if you've only been in the airport.
That's right.
Or you just step on soil.
All right, Jackie Papers. Thanks to James Carlton of the Carlton State Farm Insurance Agency, Mark Hanna of Evergreen Wealth Strategies, Seth Goldcamp of Design Air Heating and Cooling. Email in anything you want. T. McKernan at InsideSTL.com. For Jackson Burkett, I'm Tim McKernan. This has been The Tim McKernan Show.